Was there a lot of media here? You know, it took a lot longer to get that information out. So anything about that in your book?
One of the first jobs that Joe Guest got when he came here, Joe Guest is probably representative because being a miner, he ran among mining people and the word was out. And so probably through that network, that was word of mouth. And of course, those were people that the district wanted. You know, they wanted skilled miners to come. One of Joe Gast's first jobs when he was here, and so this was summer of 1930, the Path, or is it Pathé, newsreel company that used to make newsreels that were shown in movie houses, they were here in the summer of 1930s, actually going underground, and that's where they employed Joe, was to carry their equipment underground and to help them because he knew how to manage things in that environment. They were publishing newsreels. The Saturday Evening Post did a number of articles, extensive articles, about what was going on in Grass Valley, Nevada City, and other gold mining districts in California. The response here was to try to keep the news from going out. They were very concerned about being overrun and taking on the problems of the country with the limited resources that they had here. The editor of the Grass Valley Union referred to it as prosperity broadcasting. We don't want prosperity broadcasting. The editor of the newspaper in Nevada City said, write to your families in other places and tell them not to come. Now, the fact that people did write to their families in other places and told them to come brought some very important people here. And one was your good friend, Arlie Hansen, because his family came from the Panhandle of Texas, because a family member wrote, a sister wrote and said, come to Grass Valley, things are happening here. And many people came through as a result of those kinds of letters.
And her story's in there.
And her story, and a wonderful journal that Sibley was kind enough to loan me, a journey, the Hansen family journey from around Shamrock, Texas, which Panhandle country, which was the worst hit of the Dust Bowl, to Grass Valley. They came over Route 66, and in I believe it was 32, when they came, Route 66 wasn't paved all the way. It was a rock road part of the way, and it really wasn't intended for migrations across country. It was intended to link farms with towns. So the trip that, if you drove today from Shamrock, Texas to here, in an air-conditioned automobile maybe, you could do it in something like 36 hours or something, nonstop driving. They did it in 2 weeks. And that meant driving on a good day, maybe 30 miles, tires blowing out, the car battery failing, giving up things to lighten the load on the trail, one adventure after another. And the young Hansen daughter, who was turned 20 years old during this journey, kept a journal. And I think it's one of the priceless things in the book.
Just a quick follow-up. Is this the Stegner parallel? The journal in your book? The reference to the journal in your book? Is that?
And now I'm not getting the Stegner parallel.
Well, angle of repose.
Right.
Yeah.
He stole
Right.
the story.
Oh, yes. Yeah, right. I poached it, and yes. And I think used it, I hope, to the effect that the Hansen family would be proud of.
Thanks, Gage. Wonderful talk. I have a couple of questions. Read Jack Clark's book, Quartz and Gold, and throughout that book, he doesn't go into a lot of detail, but he talks about labor strife that had occurred during his time, and it just wasn't all peaches and cream for the miners. And I wonder if you did any research on that, and is that going to be in the book?
The labor turmoil in Grass Valley, Nevada City was in 1937 and 38. After the mines were employing a lot of men, and there was a certain comfort level, it gave union activists some confidence. And the story I tell about how the union action developed here begins in a small rented house on Ridge Road, just outside of Nevada City, where a man who had been a student at Cal and believed that the miners needed union representation, and serious representation, not by a company-dominated union, but by their own labor union, got a few men in his living room and talked to them about union activity and got them to write to the CIO, or the AFL-CIO, to help organize the district. And one of the sources for my book, and one of the many sources in the book who did not live to see its publication, was a man named Joe Garicio. And Joe was at that meeting in that house on Ridge Road. And he and his brother, his older brother Al, became officers of the local branch here of the AFL-CIO, and they were able to unionize a couple of the mines, and then they went after the Murchie mine, which was owned by Newmont. And Newmont was the big target, the big prize. If they could unionize Newmont, they could unionize the whole district. And that's when there was labor turmoil, there was a strike, there's all the things that you would associate with that. Vigilante activity. Eventually, the union lost the struggle in a sense, but they certainly did win things. And it's a chapter in the book, and I'm so grateful to Joe especially and to others who helped me write that chapter.
And, one other question, was there ever an attempt to put a tariff or a tax on the gold that was extracted in any way?
There was no extraordinary tax on the gold. Of course, the mines here were the largest taxpayers, and so contributed greatly to the tax base. Harry Engelbright had a bill that he brought up session after session to Ways and Means Committee, and he became Republican whip because he survived the Republican debacle of 1928 when Hoover was defeated by Franklin Roosevelt. And so he had great stature in the party. And year after year, he brought up his bill. He wanted to waive gold mining from federal taxation. The bill never got out of committee, but it certainly won him a lot of respect with the gold mining people here. And just something that hasn't come up, and maybe there's a question out there pending, but the New Deal had a huge impact here. And many people don't realize it, and you would wonder why a place so prosperous would have a lot of New Deal programs. But Nevada City, that is Harry Engelbright's city, got a lot of New Deal programs. And part of it was that there was so much federal land in the West. So there was a lot that you could do employing people in the Forest Service and in the civilian conservation corps. Those opportunities lay in the West. But it also had to do with politics.